On my workbench today is an Elmer Fudd Bugs Bunny coin bank, and the coins fit into the top there, and you can see how it's set up for any type of US coin. And there is a lever inside of here that when you push a coin down in through there, depending on which side you push it down through, either Bugs Bunny or Elmer Fudd will talk to you via a small record player that's built into this coin bank. This thing, I actually got two of these on eBay. These are about anywhere from $20 to $40. I've seen them on eBay. I think I've got both of these for about $20 to $25 per unit, and that included the shipping. So you shouldn't pay too much for them, although as you can see, this one is in really good condition. This one only has just some minor scratches here and there. Another one that I have here, let me grab the cover here. This one is in pretty bad shape though. You can see how Bugs Bunny's legs are blue. The paint scraped right off, and there's a lot of nicks and stuff in here. So don't buy this one. I would say look for one that's in a much nicer shape like this one. And you, like I said, you can get these for about 20 to 25 bucks with shipping if you look hard enough, or even do an auction. On the back side of these are the 3 slots for the coins, because as you drop the coins down in, we're missing on this one. This particular cavity or cover is extremely important, because this one actually has a conductor on it. This is where your D-cell battery would fit down into it. And so if you're missing this one, if you see this being missing online, unless you want to rewire this thing with an external battery holder, I would not buy a bank if this center one was missing. These two you could put tape over, because these are just where your coins are sitting down in the bank. So you could get away without these two, but without this one, it's going to be kind of a pain for you, because you're going to have to rewire the battery to power the battery somehow. Because if this cover with the conductive little tab for the, I believe it's the positive, I believe the negative goes down to the bottom, and then the positive would sit upright, and the positive would touch this cover. And there's a little conductive tab that mounts to the inside here, right to that hole there. And so that's how that cover works. You know, that cover is pretty important for the battery to work. There are, to take this back cover, or to take the front cover off, you have to take off the 6 screws that are along the side here. There are 9/16 long screws that go along the side here. This is not a screw hole. This is a post for a screw that comes from the opposite direction, so don't try undoing anything there, because there's nothing in there. Also, you will need a number 1 Phillips screwdriver. I'll grab one of those. I actually used both a number 1 and a number 2. Here's a number 2, which is the wider one. A number 1 is what you need though for this back cover, because the slots, the holes in the manufacturer just left barely enough room for the number 1 to fit down in there. But a number 2 gets jammed right off the bat, so don't try to use a number 2 on there. Okay, so earlier on, I was taking this negative. Let me do this without breaking the solder joint again. Take that negative lead off. Let that fall down through the hole. Okay, and I'm going to quickly, down in there, right there, is the positive. If you can see how that's mounted in there, that's the positive for the, oh yeah, and there, I need a number 1 for that, so let's do a number 1. Take that off, and that is a very tiny, only about a 3/16 inch long machine screw for some bizarre reason. Don't ask me why they did that, but yeah, tiny little tiny little machine screw. So anyway, okay, so there's your leads taken off, and just for kicks right now, because this is a bank that I fixed, let's hope that it works. I've got a rechargeable little 1.5 volt cell here, and I'm gonna maybe bring a smile to some of the people reviewing this. And let's go ahead and put a coin in. Now remember, here's the face. So Bugs Bunny's on this side, Elmer Fudd's on that side, and let's put a quarter in to the Bugs Bunny side and see if this actually works.
Very good, Doc. You're saving lots of money. Just put it my side. You're working with the bunny. As your savings grow, Doc, there are things you can do. You can even buy me a cabinet, too.
Okay, and it shuts off automatically, which is pretty cool. And then here's a coin, 25 cents, going into the Elmer Fudd side.
That crazy rabbit thinks he's smart. Where did he go? I'll tear him apart. Don't be fooled by that stupid rabbit. Put money in my side and make it a habit. Where is that rabbit anyway?
And there you go. Pretty cool, eh? For some odd reason, the Elmer Fudd side is louder than the Bugs Bunny side. I have no idea if that was just the way they did it from day one. I'm guessing it is, because it doesn't. There is no adjustment for volume on this thing. What the record plays is what you get. So, all right. So let me disconnect this 1.5 cell battery to there, and let's take this thing apart the rest of the way. Okay. There's this mounting screw. So this screw goes into that hole, that's a post that goes all the way through on the back side, that center side. So that's the first thing you do. Take that away aside. Actually, everything you take off of this thing, make sure you categorize it, or, you know, really good idea is to take tons of photos with your cell phone. Keep your cell phone handy, take photos from every angle of every single thing that you do. Here's a very important thing, and that's why you need the magic marker. Put an X. This is very important. Very, very important. Put an X on this green stripe here. Okay? Because this is a separate part from everything else. So this green X, put X's on. This green part, put X's on. On this, the left side of this black, this is a single piece up here. This is a single piece up here. Put an X on the left side of that, so that that will go on the same side as this. Put an X on that orange tab up there. Very important. Do not put anything on this orange tab over here. So X, X, X. Also, if that's not enough, put an X down in the bottom inside there. I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera there. I put an X down there. So X, 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 X. So 4 X's. That's the most important thing. This black part and this black part, those are symmetrical, so it doesn't matter if you put one on the other side or not. But those 4 X's are very important for when you reassemble this thing, if you want it to be put back the way it came. Okay? So, by taking this screw off, now this whole thing just pops out, just like that. Put everything else aside, okay? Earlier on, I put X's all over the place here. X, 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 X. So that's very important that these X's all stay on the left side, or whatever, yeah, the left side as you're pulling this thing out, okay? Next thing you need to do is take this thing off here. And that's just 2 screws. Very simple to take that apart. And let's just see how long these are. I think these are 3/8 screws. Yeah, these are 3/8 machine screws, or those are would be called sheet metal screws. Very coarse threads. So 2 3/8 screws for that. And that pink part that I took off earlier from that center post that was in the center there, from that center post right there, so that was I would say that's probably a 1/2 inch screw. Okay, So keep track of everything. Okay, now these orange parts simply lift up and pop off. But now because we marked that X like that, you'll be able to put that right back where it was later on. Put that aside. Put all that stuff aside. You don't need it right now. Okay? Next thing you want to do is this whole thing just slides either way right off of here. It's got this piece has a little notches sticking out of each side of it, and those notches fit into these grooves on each side here. So we've got it marked with an X, so it's all good to go. Okay, next thing you need to do is take these 2 screws there, 1, 2, 3, 4 screws taken out. I'll be back in a bit. A number 1 and a number 2 Phillips screwdriver is a good thing to have for this job. Also, a quality needle nose pliers. Later on, you'll need one of these. Something like a good quality hook. Even a good quality piece of wire will work, but this is a 90-degree hook that you can get at any automotive store for cheap. I think a set of these is like $1. A tiny screwdriver will come in handy later on. A magic marker, very important. And like I said, you might need a soldering gun and solder. And very important, you will need maybe some sewing machine oil in a cute little squirt bottle like this. That way you can only put one tiny little dab in the places of this toy bank that I will show you a little bit. Okay, the 4 screws that I just took out from each side of that thing, let's see here if I can line that up. Those are 1/2 inch. The total length of those 4 screws are 1/2 inch. Okay. Keep those aside somewhere. And now, as you remember, these, as I mentioned, these 2 black pieces are symmetrical, so it doesn't matter in the end how those go back on. Okay. Now here I should mention, let's be cautious here. See, when you look down in this hole right here, there's nothing, you see nothing. You look down in this hole and you see one side of the motor. You see the outside of the motor. I would say face this side down. This is a smart thing to do. With the motor there visible in that hole, face that side down and pull this up and off. The reason you want to do that is because they do not have this motor glued in place from the factory, and the motor is going to go flying off and these wires could break off. As you can see, I added glue, a pretty good substantial dab of glue to each side of the motor. Very important thing here, which I forgot for a moment there, is before you glue the motor into place, I've got sewing machine oil here. Put a dab, just a dab of sewing machine oil on each end of the motor, and then spin the motor by hand. Because if chances are, if you get one of these banks, it will have been sitting for many years, and whatever oil that might have been there most likely dried up, and so the motor won't be very happy if you try to make it work without putting a little bit of oil. So just a tiny dab, don't overdo it. There we go, just a tiniest dab, and then, like I said, spin the shaft of the motor to help that oil work its way in. Hopefully it will get in there. On this side it doesn't seem to be soaking in, but got some tissue here. So now I've got oil on each side, and yeah, oh yeah, it spins so much nicer now, just with that little bit of oil. Another thing I should mention that you might want to do is hook it up to a battery. If you can do that, if you've got the ability to do that, hook it up to a battery, which I think I'll do in a moment here, just to make sure the motor is spinning properly. I've got this 1.5 volt, well, it's actually a 1.2 or 3 volt nickel metal hydride. Either that or it's a NiCad. I don't remember what kind of battery it is. It doesn't say on it. I tested it though with a voltmeter. It's at about 1.3 volts, which is plenty for this, just for this test anyway. And clamp onto the negative, clamp onto the positive. I don't know if you can hear that, but the motor is spinning just beautifully. It's wavering a little bit, but that's probably because that oil is working its way where it needs to be. And while you're at it also, I highly recommend marking the motor. I'm going to put a plus on the white wire side and a black line on the negative black wire side. That's so that if both these wires were to fall off the motor, you wouldn't know what the heck to do, because you know the motor looks symmetrical, so you wouldn't know which way to put the wires back unless you took a photograph. So that's all the more reason you want to take photographs. And the motor does have a slight difference in it. I don't know if you can see it here, but there's 2 indentations on the negative side of the motor. So remember that. There's no indentations on the positive side of the motor. I should have had that as the stuff that you need. I use this E6000 glue, which is available at most hardware stores. You don't need to use this. You can actually use, you can also use goop glue, which is pretty common. Any type of halfway decent adhesive. Don't get the glue all over the place. Just put a nice little dab there and there on each side of the motor. At this point, I also want to note to you, just in case one of these wires were to fall off, or both of them were to fall off, the motor has 2 little notches on this side. See those 2 little notches? No notches on this side. The notched side of the motor is the negative, the black lead side. That's important also, because and the positive is, oddly enough, a white wire. Don't ask me why, because usually positive is red. But the reason why they did that is because there's actually another red wire here, so that's probably why they did it for their people at the assembly plant, so that they don't get wires mixed up. So anyway, on this unit, the white wire goes to the positive side of the battery. I've got it marked with a plus. That's a good thing to do for you. I got the negative side marked with a black dash. Okay. So glue that, and then just put this thing aside for half a day, maybe an entire day, until that glue sets. Once the glue sets, you can continue on with the video. One, two, three, 4 screws. To remove those 4 screws, this is where it gets a little hairy. We have to remove first thing we have to do is remove this screw. This screw is a piece of spring steel, which is an adjustment point. This adjusts how hard the needle pushes down on the record, which is extremely important later on. I'll show you that. So you have to really, this is a good thing to take a photo of with your cell phone to remind yourself just how close the bottom of this spring steel was to the top of this plastic post here. It's not crucial that it gets down there perfect when you put this back together, because I'll show you how to adjust that later on. But we need to take this off, which I will do right now. Do on the camera. So just unscrew that, and so there's your piece of spring steel that the screw fits down in. As soon as you remove that, this whole thing just pops right off. Now what this is, obviously this is your speaker that for the Bugs Bunny side, the pink side. When the needle is pushing down on the record, the vibration from the needle goes through the back side of the what holds the actual needle in place, a piece of plastic, which I'll show you in a moment. That causes this to vibrate, which gives you your audio. So it's a pretty cool way of making a speaker. Simple vibration. like the old days with the tight string and the Dixie cups. That's exactly what this is. Basically, it causes your audio, and it's quite loud actually. So now that we have that removed, you can see the what I would call the cartridge, just like on a record player, that holds onto your needle or stylus. You can see how that pivots back and forth. That is on a spring. In that spring, that's another thing you don't want to mess up. You do not want to mess up that spring. So I definitely tell you, do not take this thing apart. If you do take it apart, it can be a real problem to get it back together and get it back together correctly. Before I start taking these 4 screws out, another interesting problem that I've seen on these devices is this is a contact point, an electrical contact point. Right there, you can see this little flipper flips down. And this is also controlled somewhat by this gadget, as far as allowing power to get to the record player or not. And what you want to do, this is kind of difficult. I'm going to pause the video for a second here and get a tool. What I used is, what happens is this copper, I'm not really sure if it's copper or not, it might just be steel with a copper plating on it, but what I found out is that this connection point between this upper tab and this springy part becomes oxidized over time, and so the electricity can't flow to turn the record on. So what you might want to do is very gently, now I've got a nice little jeweler's kind of file here. You don't necessarily need this. Any piece, like a piece of thin sandpaper that you could run between these two, that would do the same thing. But I'm just running this gently onto each one. Just don't push down so hard that you misshapen this. That would not be good. So just enough. You'll actually see how you're etching into it, and then blow off any residue that's there. And you could use an ohm meter to make sure that these two are contacting in this particular position. You could use an ohm meter between this point and this point to make sure you have any electrical contact, or just visually look to see. You can actually see pretty easily that the two are contacting. What I also recommend doing is putting just a tiniest drop of oil here. Oil will act as an antioxidant, and it will just keep that, just a tiny bit of oil. That'll still allow electricity to flow through, but and it will keep that from oxidizing easily in the future. So a little bit of oil in there is not a bad thing. Okay, well, I've got it mounted in a vise here, as you can see, because this is just, it's really difficult for one person to do this on their own. You really need either somebody to hold this for you or to put it in a vise like I've got it here. I'm going to zoom in. So now you can see I've got the belt hooked over this. I've got the belt hooked over the piece of plastic in the background there. But I'm going to go back a bit here and use my 90-degree tool again to lift it up, and I'm going to put, there's, like as I mentioned, there's 2 holes over here. There's a bigger hole and a littler hole. The little hole is the one that they use at the factory, and so what I want to do is just rest the belt on to that screwdriver. So I've got the top hole, which is the smaller hole. I've got the screwdriver going through it, holding onto the belt. And now I can close this and then just let the belt go down. I just simply pull the tool out, and now the belt, if I look inside there, the belt, I don't know if I can get that on camera or not. Let me see if it's even on the camera. If you can even see that. You can just barely see it. I don't know if you can see that in there. The belt is now sitting on the spindle of the motor. So close it up, and that's all you got to do. So now the belt is properly where it's supposed to be. Okay, so let's go back to the workbench here. And I can go ahead and put those 4 screws back in. And I won't bore you with this, so I'm going to jump ahead here. Okay, so once again, I will just note, see that's that smaller hole there. That's the hole that I put this screwdriver through to hold on to that belt. And then you put this back together, and then you simply you go upward with the back side of the screwdriver and allow the belt to slide off of the screwdriver onto the spindle of the motor. So there you go. So the screws are back in, and all is good. All is good right now. So now we can put the speaker back onto this side. Kind of keep an eye on your wires. The negative can just stay flopped off to the side there. The positive wire, which is the white wire, just kind of sits where it sits. Don't worry about the stylus, or I mean the cartridge with the needle. Don't worry about that. Just let that hang. It's as long as you didn't screw around with the spring there, you don't have to worry about that. We'll set that later. We need to put this back on here, and there's 1, 2 mounting posts that these two holes slide over the top of. Simple as that. Here again, for putting this device back into place, it gets a little hairy. What I like to do is use a very fine needle nose pliers that I have here. Needle nose pliers. Oh, one more thing I should mention. With this plate, you'll see there's 2 little nubs right there. 2 little raised nubs. This stainless steel piece of steel, spring steel, the top of this spring steel needs to sit between those 2 little nubs that are on that plastic. Just like that, if the camera can pick that up. Just between those 2 little nubs, this thing needs to sit in. So, it's a little tricky to get that all back together. So, put that back on like that. And then I use my needle nose pliers to get this thing back into place. Just like that. I've done this so many times that I'm pretty much used to it. It'll take you probably 5 to 10 times to get it right, but so right now the spring steel is sitting between those 2 nubs, and I need to tension this down fairly close to where I remember seeing it, maybe about a 1/16 of an inch from the bottom of that spring steel to the top of that plastic post. That's all I need to do for now. Okay, so I've got the screws back together, I've got the plate back on, and just for the heck of it, since we have the motor spindle lubricated, we have the record player spindle lubricated, we have the one contact point on this side cleaned and lubricated. I should actually clean gently, if I can, gently scrape this side also, because this side, both sides use a contact point, electrical contact point, to turn the record player on. So this side, just as much as the other side, I need to just lightly scrape it and lightly add a little drop of oil on there. Tiniest little drop of oil. Not even a drop, maybe a fraction of a drop, if there is such a thing, depending on how you look at your drops of oil. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to connect my battery up to this and see what happens. Now normally when this is mounted inside the bank, the motor is at the bottom, so I'm going to hold it like that. Connect my positive to the red, red to positive, black to black. They're both playing at the same time.
side and make it a habit. Where was that weapon anyway?
It works perfectly. So it's just that simple to fix these things. You'll hear the motor continue to run because I'm forcing power on it right now. But once you have this thing connected up properly back to the contact points, it'll automatically turn the motor off when you're done putting the coins in. And I'll show you how that all happens later on. But yeah, this thing works great just by lubricating it. It really comes down to that. And what was interesting is I had just guessed, I completely guessed at the tensioning of that one piece of spring steel. Like I said, you can just eyeball it. As long as you remember just exactly how far the bottom of that piece of spring steel was to the top of that post, you should be fine. If it wants to skip or it doesn't want to travel along the record, then just gently give this screw a turn, either clockwise or counterclockwise, and just experiment with it. If it is misbehaving, if it's not misbehaving, don't touch it. Like right now, it's working great. I'm not going to touch it. So it's a beautiful thing. Okay, here's a very close viewing, as best as I can do on camera here, of how this gadget works. If you look right there, see that green post? That is your cartridge, I guess you would call it. At the bottom of that is the needle, and below that is the record, because the record obviously is down in here. On the bottom of that little green post is a needle. On the top of this green post is a little nub that fits into a hollow cavity inside of this blue plate. Both sides are the exact same as far as how this works. So when the coin drops in and flips up this lever right here, that blue lever right there, when the coin comes in, it flips that outward away from the body, and that allows the spring, which is way the heck over here. This spring, when you lift up this blue plate, that spring allows or forces this stylus to go all the way to the beginning of the record. So you'll see it happen right now. I'm gonna mimic putting a coin in, and you'll see this green stylus with the cartridge with the needle in it go to the left. Sorry about the wiring in the way here. I can kind of move that out of the way, I guess. It doesn't have to be quite where it's at. So let me just kind of mush that over. Okay. Yeah, that's a better view. Okay, so here's the coin going in. See how it just flipped over? And now, if you look closely, you can actually see the nub that's on top of the cartridge. So now, because that nub is out of the hole that was over here, the pressure from that piece of spring steel way over here is putting pressure down on the needle to play the record. And because the record will be spinning, the record, as the voice is heard or plays, that needle obviously will travel toward the inside of the record, which is over here. And when it gets to the inside, guess what? That nub on the top there, it goes right back into the hole, which causes this to come down and turn the record off. Now, right now it's in the play mode. Obviously I don't have any power attached to it right now, but right now it's obviously in the play mode. And because it's in the play mode, this contact over here, because this whole thing got lifted up away from pushing down pressure on the contact here, or on the this copper lever here, that is now closed. That circuit is now closed, which makes the record play. Pretty cool, eh? It's a really ingenious little design. So as that needle moves in and that nub on the top of the cartridge goes back into the hole on this blue plate, that causes this whole thing to drop down, which disconnects that connection point right here. So that's why it's important that this connection point, that you clean it with that file or a light piece of sandpaper and put a drop of oil there so it won't oxidize as easily or tarnish as easily. So that's the whole thing right there. Okay, so I've got my battery reconnected to the wiring here. You can see the battery down there. It's all reconnected to the wiring. Okay, so I'm going to mimic putting a coin in here, and you'll hear the whole thing go as it should. And you'll see, like I said, you'll see that needle flip to the outside to start playing as soon as I lift this lever.
Very good, Doc. You're saving lots of money. Just put it my side. You're working with the bunny. As your savings grow, Doc, there are things you can do. You can even buy me a carrot or two.
And there you go. How ingenious this little thing is. Really pretty cool. Pretty darn neat. And as I mentioned, I think, at some part in this video, that depending on how tight or loose you adjust this screw puts tension down on that piece of stainless steel, which goes between those two nubs on the blue plate. It puts pressure on here to put just the right amount of pressure on that needle so that it plays properly. If the record skips, well, the record could be dirty, which means you'd have to take this whole thing apart, which is kind of a dangerous thing to do, because taking this whole thing apart, then you'd have to take a ton of photographs to make sure you put it all back together. But I would just try adjusting this in or out ever so slightly, maybe a eighth of a turn, just a slightest turn in or out, depending on what the problem is, to get the record to play properly. If it's, no matter what you do with this, it doesn't play properly, then chances are the needle is dirty or the record is dirty. Okay, so it's time to reassemble this whole thing. When you reassemble it, remember where we have our X's here. Have the black wire coming out this slot on the right side here, and have the positive wire coming out the bottom slot. So there's your X's, red wire down here and black wire up here through those two slots. Okay, first thing you want to do is put this gadget back into these slots that are on the top here. Okay, so what you want to do when you put this thing back together is you want your X that you marked there, and you got your X's here. You want this side to go in like that. The reason why this is, if you notice, this is not symmetrical. This side's slightly lower than that side, so that's why we put the X's on there to remind us. Okay, and then what you want to do is put your orange guys back in here. So find our orange with the X's on it. That's right here. That goes on the side with the X's. Just simply drops down in there. Now when you drop it down in there, don't go bumping the levers down in there that are the ones that make the record play, because you want to make sure that this orange post here stays to the inside between the black and the blue. Down inside there, you'll see what I mean. If you, I don't know if you can, oh yeah, I can pick it up on the camera there. You can see the blue tab. You want that post, that orange post there, to go between the black and the blue, just like that. Just be gentle when you put this thing back together. Same with this side. You got the blue post for the other side there. Got your tab there. Just drop that down as close to, basically what you want to do is you want to hug this with the orange. That's probably the best thing I can tell you. Just hug that with the orange, and that will go back together just like that. And then we need this black plate to go on there. Okay, I'll screw that down. Okay, so those two screws at the top are in, and these four are in. Whatever you do not over tighten. Do not over tighten any of these screws, because you will strip these things out, and that can be problematic. Okay, now what you want to do is our X's, as you recall, all stay on the left side. Fits in snugly. Should fit like a glove. just like that. Make sure you do have it seated in there properly. I don't know if you can see that oval right there. There's like that's where the motor is. That little motor circle there. Make sure that is sitting in this cute little notch that they have in there. And basically the same with this side. This side has just a big hole, but make sure that hole is lined up properly with that notch over here also, because that'll tell you that this thing is sitting properly. And then what you want to do is put this piece back in, which basically holds it all in place. Just like that. And then what we need to do is put the positive lead. This is kind of tricky to do that. I just realized that this thing was not quite seated right. Make sure that the black goes down between that raised green lever there, and same with this side over there. I realized when I had it in there, I had it laying on top of there. So there you go. Now it's actually seated properly in there. Even though these were lined up, it was not lined up there. So make sure this thing is all the way down inside this green case. And I had to take it back off to get that thing to line up properly. So, all right. So put this back down again. Don't do as I say, just do as I do, as they say. So, okay, so now I've got the positive down in there. And then, last but not least, then this thing can go on there. The black comes up through the lead, through the hole there. Those tabs go in there just like that, so all is good. So now it is properly in there. And then this plate, I found is best to put the top in first, and then everything else snaps in, so everything is nice and flush now. Okay, just all I gotta do is put the 6 screws back into the back here, and this job is done. Well, I decided to do a modification to this Elmer Fudd Bugs Bunny bank, because I didn't feel like fooling around with a D-cell battery, which are getting more and more expensive and harder to get. I decided to run the black and red power wires out through a 15 ohm half watt resistor to a module that is normally found in these power banks that you buy. Years ago, you'd buy these for $2 or $3 at just about every store had these little power banks. Well, what's inside of this power bank is one of these modules. It has both USB sizes, the micro or the smaller and the larger. What I simply did was I bought these from China. I think they were like $5 for $5 or something like that, and that included shipping. I believe they were very inexpensive. But what I did was I took this larger one off. I just desoldered the mounting tabs on each side of it and just pried it off because I didn't need it. And what I did was I mounted it to here. And if you use a voltmeter, you can find out there's 2 tiny little tabs right there. If you see where I've got these, you can see where I've got the negative and positive soldered to the board there. It's a pretty good view there, I believe. And then what you need is a halfway decent transformer. These are called switching power banks or wall chargers. This one is, I think, rated for 2 amps at 5 volts. So these little things put out 5 volts typically for charging your cell phone and whatnot. And if I plug it into here, just like so, and then put this into the wall. Okay, I got it plugged into our wall thing now, and I'm just going to mimic putting a coin down in here, and let's see here. Well, let's just spin this thing around. I'll put it in the Bugs Bunny side.
You're saving lots of money. Just put it my side. You're working with the bunny. As you're saving
And there you go. So it does work. However, as you can tell, Bugs was talking a little bit fast there, so you might want to experiment with this. I didn't have a 16 or 17 or 18 ohm resistor, and I didn't feel like putting a 15 ohm with a 1 ohm or 2 ohm resistor in line with that. I just didn't feel like it. I don't care that it talks a little fast, but you can play around with the resistors here. As I mentioned, that's a 15 ohm that I used, but you should really use a 16 or 17 ohm maybe in series with that positive lead, and then you'll get your. It's a heck of a cheap, easier way to run this thing than running out and buying a D-cell battery every time you need it, because these things do eat up those D cells pretty quick if the kid is putting in a lot of pennies.